Hello everyone, and welcome to the LHC, where I will not be saying anything for a bit, because we're talking about something Hugh's found. So, take it away, Hugh.
Yeah, unlike normal, where we generally look at something that's either older or that we're doing that might be a little more obscure, we're bandwagoning to the nth degree today, because we're going to talk about Fallout 76, the new Bethesda game. So,
yes.
I have been playing this, and I would have absolutely no objection if Lewis wanted to play this, but hasn't. So mostly this will be my thoughts on it. So what do you understand about it then, Lewis, just as an intro?
Well, as someone who's only played, I think, Fallout New Vegas and everything, but I'm well aware of the Fallout series. A lot of people really like it. Particularly Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas are generally considered quite seminal. And they generally take the place of role-playing games, where you mosey about a sort of a setting of a post-nuclear apocalypse America, dealing with generally sort of massive distractions. There's generally a through plot, but everyone generally, I certainly did, just gets massively distracted as you go through with all of the other little side quests, particularly as we moved on to a particular generation of video games where they had the space to do all that. But Fallout 76, from what I understand, is not like that, and is, if I were to be supremely uncharitable, is Rust with a Fallout skin slapped over it. Where it is a survival build-a-base game where you run about acquiring materials to build yourself better gear and better sort of settlements.
So, essentially, imagine if you absolutely loved, I don't know, Assassin's Creed, and then they released the new one, and they took away the stealth.
Yeah, imagine if they released Fallout and took away the story and the interaction with interesting fictional characters.
Yeah, and made it just the running around the wasteland bit, which isn't the best bit of Fallout, I don't think, in anyone's mind. When it was announced, everyone just kind of went, really? Isn't that Fallout without the Fallout? Like, Fallout, essentially, if you have never played a Fallout game, it's, if you've played Skyrim, which I think most people on Earth probably have by now.
I think you may have accidentally played the version of Skyrim which is available on most microwaves these days.
But, it's a case of, it's Skyrim in post-apocalyptic sort of, it's a retro future, so it's a 50s aesthetic and plasma weapons, but Fallout is essentially just, desolation future Skyrim.
Yeah,
so
it's a bit. I think this came before Elder Scrolls did Fallout, even though there's been fewer.
It depends on which Elder Scrolls. The original Elder Scrolls were nothing like the later ones. So
really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Certainly, well, in the same way that the new Fallout is very much different to old Fallout. Fallout 1 and 2 are top-down isometric RPGs, and
but the setting is very similar.
Oh yeah, no, the setting is
the setting of you've basically got you are on this nuclear wasteland America, but America has never progressed beyond the aesthetic style of the 50s.
Yes,
and everything is
after.
So everything is like the future that they imagined in the 50s they would have, where people and sort of setups are all kind of the same, and design aesthetic is the same, but they do have robots. But they have the kind of robots that they would imagine that they would have in the 50s.
In the 50s, exactly.
And everything's run with nuclear power because, like a few of other games of the last 20 years and the pulp fiction of the 50s and 60s, nuclear power is like magic and amazing and doesn't have this stigma that is associated with it today.
Well, in fairness, that's because they just found a cure for radiation poisoning, which is...
Yes, they just found this thing that you can just take and it just gets rid of all radiation poisoning.
Yeah, you can just remove radiation poisoning from yourself, and including any and all radiation-based mutations, it's just fine.
Yeah, drop off. Oh, that's the other thing is, of course, radiation-based mutations can turn you into an immortal zombie.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Rather than just having your, molecules melt and disintegrate. So, yay for that. But, so yeah, as you said, it's kind of a survival horror, but this is the thing. It's a survival game that in no way requires any effort to survive. So you have your 2 tracks being food and water. You don't have to sleep, but if you do, it heals you and gives you like XP bonuses for the next few hours. But the only thing you actually have to monitor is your health and your thirst and your food. And I've never once drunk anything but purified water, and I've been playing a lot of hours now. And you just get... Purified water is just so easy to come by. It's the reward for virtually every quest is a few purified water in with the rewards.
So that you can stave off thirst for a little bit longer.
Exactly, yeah, until you can do another quest. But actually, I ended up having just lots of purified water. And fairly early on, one of the obvious plans you get from one of the early quests is a purifier that you can build in your base, which doesn't actually have that much in the way of requirements. And once you've built it, it just generates purified water every X amount of hours, as long as you stick it in a stream or another body of water. So I've never thought the survivally bit was in any way anything other than a minor irritation. It's essentially just in the middle of a battle, it'll just go, oh, I'm thirsty. And you have to sort of go, right, well, I'll just kill these super mutants and hide behind this wall and then just have about 3 bottles of water, and then I'll go, right, I can ignore my thirst for the next hour. Hooray.
See, that's what's always weird about those things in these games, right? It's like people have a different view of their homeostasis depending on the situation. So, like, you can be really thirsty in a firefight, but it doesn't just creep up on you. If it's going to cause you problems, you've been thirsty for a long time. You don't just suddenly go, oh, I've got a terrible thirst on, right in the middle of a firefight. Well, people don't notice it until the adrenaline's worn off.
Exactly. So there's perks based on, and debuffs based on your hunger and thirst level. If you're well fed, you get like a bit of a bonus to stuff. And if you're, well hydrated, you get a bit of a bonus to stuff. But if you get below, I think it's 30% of your bar, it just cuts off your energy by a third.
Whoa.
So it just goes, right, a third of your energy is just a red bar now, and until you have a drink, it won't come back. So, it's just like in the middle of the fight, it just goes, boom, a third of your energy is now red, so you can't use that. And I go, oh, okay. Like I say, I'll just throw a few grenades, maybe hit something with a stick, and then have a couple of drinks. So there's that bit, which is really a little irritation without actually providing anything to the game. Like, if you actually had to survive, if you had to go and search for food or water, or, it was important to build things that would do that for you, that's one thing. But I've never, like I say, I'm not an unreasonably high level now. I'm not like ludicrous like some people I see on servers, but I'm not an unreasonable level, and I've never had problem with purified water being available. I've literally never had to drink dirty water or toxic water, or even I've got taught in like the first mission to boil water to reduce the chance of disease, and I was like, but why? Look at all the purified water I have. I would never need to do this. And in the same way, like, you're meant to keep an eye on your radiation, because of course part of the thing with, you've got to keep eating and drinking. And obviously if you're eating meat of radiated creatures, they have slight radiation poisoning. And if you drink water that's slightly radioactive, you get radiation poisoning. And radiation poisoning essentially just reduces your max HP. But every time it gets to about a third of my max HP, I just take some rad away and it all disappears. And that's sort of the intent, that you're meant to be able to do that. But then Radaway isn't scarce. There's no scarcity of it. You just have, I guess I'll just take some Radaway now. In the same way as, I'm thirsty. It's, I'm radiation poisoned. I guess I'll take some. I'm fine now.
Ugh.
And so it's kind of, and in the same way, like, I've chosen to be a melee tank character, which means I'm getting shot a lot. And I struggle with healing items. I do, but I'm not really that struggling. And I know everybody else I know who has chosen not to run at all the enemies with a baseball bat and get shot, and has maybe stayed at a distance behind cover and just picked them off, has never once felt any threat about running out of healing items.
Yeah, what a surprise. So there's actually, unlike Fallout, where generally things are melded so that people with melee have, like, a good reason to be a melee class.
I'm the most damaging character of anyone I've met. I just walk around with a bat, and it's just, as soon as I get close to you, you ain't gonna do anything but die.
Oh, okay, so there is a good reason to be a melee character then.
I've found, but then I've put almost all my points into strength and just whacked people in the face with a sledgehammer for a few levels. So that was fun, but at the same time, I haven't actually put my HP up enough. And I do reckon that's probably why I run out of HP. It's just because I am a strength intelligence character, and when I eventually get around to putting in some endurance, I might actually be survivable. But, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you have these survival elements, and the scarcity is not in any way there to mean that you feel like that's a bad thing. Like if you had like anti-radiation stuff at your home that you had to go back to or something, that's one thing. But no, I'm just carting around so much crap that I can just go, right, okay, that's fine. So the other thing they've changed since Fallout is that when you look at your inventory, it doesn't pause the universe.
Yeah, or VATs, from what I understand. But yeah,
exactly,
inventory.
yeah. So that's much the same as anything when you're going to have to transfer it to a multiplayer game, because you can't have it pause every time someone on the server looks at their menu.
Mm-hmm.
But what that does is it massively weights certain items pro and con. So prior to this, like if you've ever played Skyrim or Fallout, you'll know that occasionally if a fight's not going well and you need it, you just look at your inventory, the whole game pauses, and you just go, I'm going to take all of the drugs. So I'm going to take some like painkillers, and I'm going to take some strength boosters, and I'm going to take some like slow down time drugs, and I'm just going to take all of these, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get people. And you can't do that now, because if you want to do that, you have to do it before the fight.
Certainly, you probably can't have a slow down time drug because of
exactly. Yeah, you can't have that. So if you're going to take any of the booster drugs, then you're not really going to feel comfortable doing that when the enemy knows where you are. And if it's an enemy that's powerful enough that you kind of need that, the only real option is to have seen it coming. And you don't really see enemies coming, because as a friend of mine who built a sort of stealth build pointed out, there's no point being like a stealth sniper like there was in Fallout when the enemies load only when you get close enough.
Yeah, they can just pop in, so there's no advantage to sniping. I saw a person...
That's the problem, is the draw distance is just... Oh, right. Because actually on Fallout 4, I have multiple characters, and one of them was a stealth sniper, whereas if you can get like a vantage point above the base I'm about to assault, like there's a base in Fallout 4 where there were a load of raiders, and I literally just found a hill about a mile away, went really high up, got my highest zoom rifle out, and just picked off heads, and they just genuinely couldn't even work out what direction it was coming from. Finally, I'd got rid of about 2/3 of them, and the last of them just started running at me because their range is so much shorter. At which point I just, you're running at me in a straight line, start picking you off on the way coming towards me as well. So I took out this entire base without once stepping foot in it. And that was great. It was a lot of fun. But that's because in 4, the draw distance is about the range. I mean, I actually could see further than the draw distance, but only by a little bit. And it was still like a couple of 100 meters minimum. And now in this, it does seem like if you aren't within like 100 meters or even 50 meters sometimes, the enemies just aren't going to exist.
I did hear a story of someone who did exactly kind of what you did, which was pick off a base of super mutants from a distance. Went in, they were all dead, so apparently they'd done it from like a proper distance where they'd spawned in properly, but foolishly went downstairs into the basement, and then when they came back up, all of the enemies spawned right in front of them. So there was nothing that they could do. They were just immediately trapped because of when the enemies decided to spawn back in.
Well, that was a part of a problem because, as in most MMOs, enemies just have a cooldown rate when you kill them.
Yeah.
So there's a prison fairly early on that you pass just... And we just went, we're passing a prison. That seems interesting. We might as well go in. We went in, and it was a really tough fight because we were like level 5 or something, but we managed to kill all of the super mutants in there. And I found some power armor, and I was like, hells yeah, my first super power armor. This is fantastic. And then as we were looking around, we were like, wow, this is actually probably a much higher level area than we were meant to be able to do. So there was loads of decent gear and stuff. At which point, halfway around, all the super mutants just popped back in.
So yeah, it's like
around us. So we were then, instead of assaulting from outside, picking them off one at a time and moving slowly into the thing, we're just in the middle, and suddenly everyone surrounds us, and they all like we just sprinted for the exit, you know.
Well, at least you could get to the exit.
Oh well, luckily one of the walls of the prison's just destroyed, so we
brilliant.
just ran out, and then I just threw, and so Yeah, so that's the next frustration is essentially I literally don't even carry that sort of stuff anymore because all of those drugs that you'd need either pre-warning or the need to have the game pause, it just doesn't work unless you could set it up. Like there is a perk that you can get which automatically uses health points, health stim packs when you're low health. But if you could do that for drugs, that might be reasonable. Like, you know, when something is twice your level, automatically use one of every drug. That I can see being worth it. I haven't seen a perk like that, but if they had that, it might be worth keeping the drugs on you. But if it's just a case of, right, okay, I've got to fight that thing, you don't really want to be going in your menu and knowing that there's a giant monstrosity walking around. Because especially if enemies are hitting you in your menu, sometimes it's really frustrating when you're like, okay, come out of the menu. There's not like a single button, oh, I'm out of the menu. Sometimes you have to go like, back.
Well, especially because it's the Pip-Boy, isn't it? Is your menu, which is clunky in Fallout, but hey, at least everything pauses. Yeah. So now it's like, oh, let's use this clunky menu in real time.
They haven't actually. I mean, it was always a bit of a hassle to use the Pip-Boy, but now using it when you know that someone might just shoot you, like it's just really kind of annoying, and so yeah, you know, it's a bit. So that's a frustration. So. Like I say, the survival mechanic just is no real reason because the scarcity value is pointless. But the one thing that there is scarcity value of is the ability to make stuff. So the plans to actually make anything, you get the basics of like, here's some wood walls and some wood floors and some wood doors. There you go. But the actual plans, so you can either get them as random rewards from missions or you can buy them from vendors. And buying them from vendors, they are essentially so much money that it's like you buy one and you're pretty much bankrupt. Or you might buy 2 or 3. And the other problem is, so you can buy like cosmetic plans to build your base up, or you can buy like weapon plans. Now, in Fallout 4, say you've got like a pipe pistol and you strap a scope to that. Do you know, you probably also know how to strap a scope to a 10mm pistol. You might even know how to strap a scope to a .32 pistol. But do you know what? In Fallout 76, you just can't grasp the concept that you might be able to do the same thing. Every single modification to a gun is unique to that gun. You know, it's like if you build a slightly better grip or sights or like a silencer, there is no way that your character can work out how to adapt that to put it on even a minutely different weapon, right?
Ugh, that's a bit.
Yeah. And so also when you break down weapons, so you can scrap them and learn about parts, but it's a random chance and it's a fairly low percentage. But you know, you scrap parts and you're like, oh, okay, so I've scrapped like 10mm and I've learned a fair few of the modifications that were attached to this 10mm. Or you could have just taken them off and put them on another thing. So it's like a bit of irritation there. But the thing is, I've been playing for hours and hours and hours, and I can literally only build pipe pistols, the thing I could build at the beginning of the game. At no point has the game... I've been looking at all the vendors, I've been looking at this, I've been looking at that, and at no point has it ever like spawned the plans to build these weapons. And the weapon plans are not particularly intuitive. Like, you might think you're buying the plans for a 10mm pistol, and it turns out that you're actually buying the plans for the grip of the 10mm pistol, not how to make the pistol itself.
Ugh.
And so therefore that's just irritating as well.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the thing is as well, so all your condition of your weapons and armor degrade, fine, exactly the same as Fallout, but then repairing it is much the same. You've gathered your materials and you've built it. Now the difference is, in Fallout 4, what you've got is a stash box at your base. So you've got what you can carry on you, and you've got a box you can put all your stuff in at your base. Now, that's fine. You can just put everything you've ever found in this box, and when it comes to repairing stuff, that's great. You can use it. Now, in Fallout 76, that stash box has a weight limit of 400. And 400
I heard about this. Nothing.
Pathetic. Yeah. Like, the thing is, right, you know I said I went to this prison, I found power armor?
Mm-hmm.
The chassis is weight 10. Each of the pieces of armor is weight roughly 12 to 20. So if you think that I found a suit of power armor, which I'd like to point out, 25 is the level minimum to wear decent power armor, right? I have found power armor stuff that's like level 5 raider junk stuff, but I'm saying the first suit I found was level 25. And until I was level 25, I could not wear it. So I had to just either scrap it and just go, oh, I guess I won't have this. But it's relatively rare to find power armor, and I didn't know. It was my first suit. I didn't know whether it was going to be really hard to find or not. So I wanted to keep it. And if you think, I've got what? Leg, arm, torso, helmet. So that's 6 pieces of power armor and the chassis. And that's 10 for the chassis, average of about 15 per piece. So you just go like 30, 60, 90, 100. So one suit of power armor is weight 100 of your weight.
Ooh.
And as someone pointed out, bobby pins weigh more in Fallout than they do in real life. And bullets weigh, and everything weighs. So even like the fusion cores for your power armor are like weight 3. And power armor fusion cores that's the thing you use up when you're walking around with them. They just drain. So you need a few of these, and it just ends up being, okay, right. To have power armor, you need, if you can't wear it and equip it, you need like to assign 150 weight to it or something like that.
Yeah, so you're basically a huge chunk of your storage.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you can't just leave your power armor at your base either. You can't just have it sat in your cabin. If you ever stay out of it for a minute, it just goes, your power armor was being withdrawn back into your inventory. So no one can steal it, but you can't just leave it at your base like you could at Fallout with all of its weight just on itself. No, it just teleports back into your inventory, which means that you then can't actually deal with it as a thing, really. You just got to keep it on you.
Yeah, you just got to keep it, which is ridiculous. And you know the reason why that is? It's not because of any particular game balance. It's because they need to keep it tracked on your character.
Exactly,
they haven't thought this whole thing through of making sure that the bloody thing works as a game.
And sometimes in Fallout 4, when you're looking at your inventory, it was minorly slow, and that was very frustrating. But it is like that in Fallout 76 as well. Like, I've gone to my 400 storage box that's full, and I've tried to move some stuff around in it, and it's just so slow and laggy to do so, because it's trying to adjust like this with other people on the server and everything. They are talking about increasing the weight limit, but
I have heard that,
as I said, I'm a strength character, and I have roughly, because I have like max strength, I have roughly double the character's strength of the person I play with, and because they're a perception build, they don't have strength, so I've got about double their carry limit, and I find it really frustrating. Just imagine what it is for them.
Yeah, imagine what it is for like a non-strength character.
I've given up picking up things because my inventory is almost always just full. You know, it's just frustrating. And as far as building stuff at your base goes, as I say, it's just a nightmare to get your base built. And then, of course, you've got to leave it up, which means that if anyone else goes near it, the monsters can spawn around it and then attack it. So you have to make sure there's like turrets defending it as well, or you'll just come back and everything's just been destroyed because you didn't put any turrets up defending it. So you've got to build all these turrets and everything like that. And it wouldn't be too much of a hassle, except that because fast traveling costs you money now, and moving your base costs you money, but really you need access to your base quite a lot. But there's a great feature where if you're in your Pip-Boy, you can just press L1 and oh look, there's my base. I've moved it to wherever I am, and you set it up again. And that means it just boxes in everything you've got at your old base, and you can just pop it back up at your new base. But sometimes it doesn't quite fit, or sometimes, you know, things have been destroyed, so you just pop it up and then, oh, I haven't got any of the stuff I used to have because it's been destroyed. That's annoying. Or you go, right, okay, this worked perfectly at my last location where I built it, but there's nowhere, it doesn't fit here, you know? So that can just be rather frustrating as well. And it's also easy to cheat the system because you can fast travel to your friend's base or your own base or your friend for no money. So you can just sort of, if you're in a team, you just like kind of leave waypoints around so that you keep jumping back and just use one person's base as a teleporter and someone else's base as a, right, we need to actually use a base now. You know?
It's just...
And that's...
They have these things that they clearly want to be fun, yet they make those bits as inconvenient to access as possible.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're going to put a survival mechanic in with weight limit problems, also your food and your materials degrade over time. They spoil. So your meat, you can just end up with an inventory full of spoiled meat. and if you haven't used it or drunk it or eaten it or whatever you're going to do with that item. So that's also a bit frustrating. But because you've got to worry about, like I say, you don't have to worry about finding food or water, but you do have to put a big chunk of your inventory aside for keeping that stuff around in there, which is annoying. And you have to put a bit of your inventory into wearing armor because, like I say, it's not really possible to be a stealth sniper anymore. And therefore, that's a bit frustrating. So it's essentially it's like playing a more frustrating Fallout 4, and you're just gonna go, right, well, is the gameplay fun? And the answer is, it's still fun because it's still Fallout. It's still nice to run around, but it's more annoying because the gameplay is that when you fight monsters, they just reappear and they respawn after 10 minutes or however long it's been, and therefore, when you've cleared an area, it doesn't stay cleared for you to loot it if it's a big area. There's also no real incentive to be in a group, because whilst you can teleport to one another and you might get an occasional bonus for like helping a friend do a mission, if I kill something, unless he's got a shot at it, he doesn't get XP. So actually, you're not sharing XP as a party, you're only getting XP as if you were on your own, right? And there's no real incentive to stay together either. Like, we can be in a party and just going and doing separate things. You don't have to stay together. You don't have to help out. There's not a thing. And we haven't really found any missions that sort of required both of us either. Like, either there's something that is so powerful we can't fight it whether we're together or apart, or we can handle it on our own.
Exactly.
So there's not really an incentive to be a party, apart from that's kind of the only benefit to the game over Fallout 4. Because the other thing is they've removed all of the people. There's all the NPCs are just missing.
Well, yeah, there's no NPCs. There's holotapes and everything, but everyone else is dead. Is the idea?
Computers, holotapes, or robots. Now, I didn't mind that idea if it's implemented so that everyone's been dead a while. But there's this feeling like you get like distress signals, and then you go there to find that everyone died before you got there.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere you go, there's just like bodies. It just feels like you're always 5 minutes late to the interesting part of the game.
Exactly, where people were around and they could talk about it. So it's sort of like, oh yeah, we're here, and then you turn up and it's like, oh no, they all died while you got there. Which is kind of like a screw you to the player. It's like, why didn't you get here fast enough?
Exactly. Like, every time I've done something, like, it's like, oh, there's a robot here that goes, hey, do you want to help out? There's a volunteer group that does this, and it's really nice of them to do that. And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll join the volunteer group. And he goes, cool. Right, here's the tests. Well done, you're part of the volunteer group. Now go and do this mission. And you go there, and you just find the volunteer group dead in the entrance or halfway down. And you go, oh, okay, wonderful. And then it goes, and then you'll, like, go home, and you'll hear, like, a message of, oh my god, we're under attack, please, we need help. And you go there, and they're all dead. And there's a few raider corpses, and their corpses, and a few other corpses. But for a game system, like, where in the universe there's always been people, survivors, all around, and I know the idea is that every person you see, therefore, is either a person who's a player or, like, an NPC enemy or a robot. But it does feel like, well, actually, in all the other Fallouts, like, there's still ghouls. There's still ghouls. There's still enemy
Feral ghouls, though, I imagine.
Feral ghouls, yes.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the whole thing with Fallout is essentially the ghouls are people who've had a lot of radiation, but it hasn't killed them. It's just turned them, their body is sort of adapted to having radiation. And some parts of them have sort of melted down and disintegrated, but as long as their brains are intact, they stay sane. So in the future, in all the other Fallout games, there are sentient ghouls, and then there are ghouls where they've just gone mad and attack everything on instinct. But in this, it's like, so you've removed all the sentient ghouls, but none of the actual, the ghouls are still there, but they're now all mad, and they're all attacking you, so there's no one to talk to. And there's no real roleplay, because also, like, if it's a PC game and you're communicating with, like, typing your stuff in, or you're going to roleplay on the server or whatever, that's one thing, but there's no real element of roleplay, because, for a start, you can only do, like, voice chat or waving gestures at each other, which just fair enough. But also, you can change your character at a moment's notice. There's an option in the menu to just change your character's appearance and all the things about them. So, you don't really get invested in the character you've built when you can just modify them at any time. I mean, that's... I'm
always a bit pro for being able to change a character.
I am, generally, but I'm also... So in Fallout 4, like I say, I've got 4 different I think 4 different major files I put a lot of time into because there's 4 different major routes through the game. And I could build them in 4 different playstyles. So I could build them melee and like sniper and I think like energy weapons and pistols, I think it was, or VATs or whatever. But I always sort of looked at a different key stat and I built them around different stats. So, you know, like that was great and it was a lot of fun. But in this, so you get your perk points and you can put them into stats and you get perks, but your perks are interchangeable. Like at any point, you can just go and change all your perks around. As long as you own the card, you can just switch them in and out. So you don't end up with sort of a build. Like, you know, when we were playing Payday together, and you ended up with people being in specific roles, because I had this and I had that, and you had this and you had that. And then after a while, it was just like, nobody has to be the technician because... And it was like, you had to sort of have a technician and you had to like spend quite a lot of money to rejig your whole character. Yeah. You know, so it did sort of incentivize you to be... Each of you picks a role, or everyone needs to be a bit versatile, or you need some of this, some of that. And then they sort of scrapped that and went, no, everyone can just build what they want and change it at a moment's notice without any real penalty. And once you did that, you didn't really have like characters anymore. You were all just sort of a homogenous soup. It's a bit like that in Fallout, where you can build your character and build it around certain ideas, but because you can change at any point, it's just a bit frustrating. And I thought, okay, so there's no point in having multiple characters because it looks like there's so much random stuff, you know, like whether or not you've got plans for this or plans for that I don't want to have to be rolling the dice repeatedly on multiple files. Because in Fallout 4, I didn't mind having multiple files because I knew there's set locations for everything. If you need something, you can go and get it, and it's not going to be a problem. But actually, if I'm going to do a daily event 100 times, I want that reward 100 times. I don't want 25 rewards spread over 4 characters. So I just decided, fine, if it looks like the game's been built around you having only one character, fine, I'll do that, great. And then I discovered that you can't get max stats. Like, your stats go to a certain point and then hold there. So it's sort of is versatile, but also isn't. It's sort of gone for this stupid middle ground where your character isn't really as customizable as you'd want for only having one character. Like, you can't be Skyrim character where I am the Dragonborn, I'm the greatest mage, thief, and warrior, all in one package. Look at how mighty I am. No, in this, you can only get 3 stats to max of 7. And if you do get 3 stats to max, all your other stats have to be pretty crap. So you can either sort of be spread thin at a mediocre level, or 3 of them max and 4 of them crap. You know, it's just like it's really mismatched. It just doesn't seem to work. You know, and there's no real roleplay element, and there's no real talking to people and all of that sort of stuff. So it's sort of it is really hard to recommend it, especially because generally speaking, we spend the first 10 to 20 minutes trying to get the system to understand that we want to be in a party, we want to adventure together, and that we want to be in the same world.
So even partying up is hard?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have thought so, because there's a whole party system. So we'll go into PlayStation and go... We play on the PlayStation, just for... I don't know how bad this is on the Xbox or the Steam, but we go into the PlayStation, we set up a party, and then we're in a party, and you can do, like, play together, and then it literally loads the game up together and automatically groups you. Except sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes it says we're in a team and it says we're in a party, so we can't actually invite one another to a party because we're technically in one. But if we hit play, it will put us on different servers. Or we'll try and fast travel to one another when we're in a different server, and we'll just appear next to one another, but it won't be actually showing me their health bar, and it won't be counting us as a group for, like, you know, going around and getting bonuses and stuff. So... just sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it just kicks you out for no bloody reason. So, yeah, the servers aren't... I know it's been out a month or whatever, so it's not like they've had that much time, but Bethesda are a great one for not releasing things and a point where they're actually stable. You know, it's that whole open beta.
Yeah, essentially, because, I mean, no, but the proper game's out now, isn't it? You've paid for it.
It is. I mean, actually, you know, I've worked in the testing community, and some of us were using open beta as an insult for a while, just because it was a case of open beta means I haven't been bothered to test it. I can't be bothered to pay a testing company to test it and to fix the bugs. I'm going to release it and then wait for the complaints and fix whatever people are shouting about the most because I want to make it off for the Christmas rush. You know?
Yeah, pretty much.
the other problem is, when someone releases something like Skyrim, buggy as hell, but everyone loves it, agrees it's a fantastic game, it just needs a few bug fixes. They know it's really worth fixing the bugs because they're making a lot of money hand over fist with this. But with Fallout 76, the problem I have with this is that the reviews are back, and I haven't seen any reviews better than like 2 out of 5. And even my own review, like I spoke to a friend who he and I were trying to work out whether we should get it beforehand, and I ended up going, sod it, I want to support them even if it's not really something I'm expected to be amazing. It'll hopefully be fun. And now and when they said, right, so you've had it for a while, should I buy it? And I said, I can't in good conscience recommend it. I really can't. I want my friends to have it. I want you to have it so that I can play with other people. Because I'm still playing it and I'm still mostly enjoying it. But I don't know, have you ever had a game where you're sort of more frustrated than you are enjoying it when you're playing?
Yeah.
And it's like, wasted potential is the worst thing in anything. Like, I would much rather things were bad than wasted potential, because it's just frustrating when things could have been amazing. Like, that there's so many examples of games or anime or TV shows where it's just like, you had such a good premise, or oh my god, it was really amazing, and then you tried a twist that didn't work and it just all went to crap.
Yeah.
It feels like that with Fallout, and the problem is, since it's been raked over the coals, and it's just like, this is probably the worst thing in the history of their company in terms of PR. And now, what you're really incentivizing there is for them to just sort of brush it under the rug. And because really, if they fix the servers, are people going to actually buy it?
No.
Probably not. If they fix the bugs, are people going to actually start playing it? No,
it depends on what you mean. It means, will this change be communicated and lead to sales that cover the cost of actually making the changes? But
Exactly.
You know what, Hugh, would be the better way to prevent this whole problem? Is having a product that you can sell.
Yeah.
It's the thing, but it's not true with it's not just games. This is the thing. This is true with anything you're trying to sell to somebody. That's what I don't understand. When did games become not products that people spend money on?
When they became updatable, right? When I listen to my favourite band's new album comes out and I go, oh, that's amazing. I really want to listen to their new album. And do you know what? I buy the new album and it goes, hey, here's 4 tracks. They're the demo versions that we've just been passing back and forth between us. I guess maybe at some point we'll flesh it out. And then 2 years later, they've patched my album. So it's now 11 tracks. Half of them are studio quality, and some of them are just the guy humming in his shower. Going, yeah, I think we're going to write that as a proper album. No, that doesn't happen. It's not, with the exception of one author, books don't get released and then they release a patch for the book. Oh, I actually decided that Jeff shouldn't have got with Steve at the end of the book. I actually decided that he was better off with his true soulmate, Johnny. So here is the last chapter rewritten, but now Johnny is the main love interest instead of that other guy. Like, that doesn't happen. You don't release it. You don't release the book before the editor has been given it.
Exactly.
Whereas they do release this before the test. I mean, I'm not allowed to talk about... I've legally signed NDAs about being a tester, so I legally can't talk about certain aspects of it. But if a game like that came in, we would fail it.
Yeah.
So if Bethesda hypothetically had given it to any testing company that I know of that's a reputable testing company, they would not have given it a pass. They would have said, this is not at a release build. They've got it out of alpha into beta build, where it's buggy but playable, but this isn't a releasable product. And as you say, you just wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it with any other product. And I just think this is a fine example of how little not everybody, but how little certain groups of big game companies care for actually doing good business. Well, in a way they are doing good business, because if they make a profit on it, well, who cares for them? But it's just
that is the problem,
yeah. And in a way, it's not people who are doing it. They're incentivized to act this way, aren't they? It's incentivized to just get something. You're incentivized to just get something with a popular, bit of IA. Sort of like it's got like some cultural clout. Mash it together with something popular, which at the moment would be these games that people play quite a lot of. People play games similar to Fallout 76 a lot.
Oh,
and they spend a lot of money on them. Push those two together. It sounds like a solid business decision, but It probably won't. It's probably not possible to make a good game with them within a adequate time frame. You'd have to spend years on it, and even then. But that doesn't lead to good returns. So it's like,
No.
I realise I'm just literally going to go wind back like 5 seconds and say, no, it's not people. It's the unfortunate system of capitalism we're in right now with video games, where everyone who makes them is like actively incentivized to not make good games.
The thing is, I generally give people one, and I do think that I'm not unlikely to be doing a system that nobody else does. So, for example, I love the band, blah, and I will buy the new album of that band. And if they release an album I'm not that keen on, the next time they release an album, I will listen to it before pre-ordering it. I won't pre-order it. I'll wait till it comes out. I'll listen to it either like through the live shows or online, because sometimes they just, they'll perform a few songs and I'll wait and hear what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hear the samples and then I'll buy it. In the same way, authors, there was a book series I really enjoyed. The author releases a new book and I buy it automatically without checking reviews or paying any attention to anyone else's opinions. I bought it. It was dire. It was absolute tripe. And next time that author released a series, I got it from the library, I read it, and then I weighed up whether or not I wanted to buy the damn thing. You get one bad product, and after one bad product, you do not have the confidence that you will just buy whatever you do. I bought whatever Bethesda put out. I bought Skyrim because I loved Oblivion and Fallout and everything. The minute I like the company, I will buy everything they release until there's a bad one. I bought every Assassin's Creed game until Origins, and I couldn't stand Origins. I literally can't play it. It's awful. And therefore, I haven't bought Odyssey. And when Odyssey came out, I did a lot of research into it. And this is the first time I've checked whether it was worth buying an Assassin's Creed game, because you get one. And honestly, this is Bethesda's one.
Okay, so from now on, you're going to be careful about what Bethesda releases.
Unfortunately, yeah. And I don't want to be, because for a start, I want them to make the next Elder Scrolls and I want them to make Fallout 5.
Well, they are making the next Elder Scrolls, we know that.
Do we, though? We know that they said they're going to be making it after the next 2 releases, one of which was, I think, Fallout 76.
I swear, I've heard...
was like Star something. It was basically the next one was Fallout/Skyrim, but now it's in space. Star something. Yeah. And they're doing a mobile game. That's the other problem. Bloody mobile games and MMOs and anything with a subscription or microtransactions is better for monetary value. But we've already done a whole thing about...
Yeah. Well, exactly, about how it works. But I think they were planning on sticking that in Fallout 76 anyway. I'm surprised there isn't some sort of way of spending more money in it.
Oh, there is, yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Go and buy atoms, but that means you can buy plans and costumes for atoms, but at the same time you unlock them via in-game achievements.
I still think it's bad. There still has to be a balance in, because they wouldn't have been able to put the man hours to put that into the game without explaining to certain people this will earn us money, because some people will not be bothered and will just spend the money, which I think is bad practice.
It is, but I'm always much happier when it's cosmetic only. If it was a case of pay to win on a game I've already paid, I think I paid 60 quid because I got the special edition.
Yeah, but I still say cosmetics are part of the game. Like, there's been plenty of games before we had the internet where you got cosmetic upgrades for certain things in the game, and you got them by playing the game.
Yeah. The thing is, though, it is part of the problem of, I know a game, I think it was the original Earthbound, came out with a bug in it, and you can't patch it. Oh, yeah. I bought a PlayStation game, and I found a bug in it, and I took it back, and I said, oh, my copy's faulty, I need to exchange it. Showed the guy in the shop where the bug was by putting it on their console, and then just went, oh, yeah, you're right, it is buggy, gave it to me. I took it home. This is before I was having any internet access, so I just took it home, put it in my console, my new version, and it still wasn't working because the game was bugged, and the PlayStation 1 was not patchable. They released a game with a bug that meant I could not do Mission 30, and therefore the game was just broken. Yeah. And
well, you just don't buy it then. It's
the downside, isn't it?
That is you got to remember, right? That's not a problem for you. The world's full of you just don't buy that one product. The world's full of these things. It shouldn't be a down of like, oh no, luckily we now live in a place where even the most mediocre piece of crap can be patched to serviceable. It should be, those things shouldn't be made. They shouldn't be rewarded for having put out something that bad. If in a way, this is like proper free market stuff where I'm kind of, big socialist that I am, okay with it. You make something bad, well, it's kind of tough on you then. You don't make your money back. You should have made a good product if you wanted to work in this market.
Yeah, but it does screw people over. Like, I know it's being...
No, that's why you have consumer protections. It's not
now.
Screwing people over. You return the product, you get your money back, and the onus is on the person who made the bad product.
Except that they're legally challenging people's right to return it because they've played it. And they say because you don't
That's a
think
different
it's
thing, though, isn't
advertised.
it? That's bad consumer protection law. That's got nothing to do with how people make and sell products. Well, in a way it is, but you know what I mean. Like, that should be there. Consumers should be protected from bad things that people have made.
Yeah, that's true.
And on that positive note, we'll just end there.